Welcome to another episode of Lit&Bruised, an Atlanta literary podcast. I'm Matt DeBenedictis.
And I'm John Carroll. Matt, this is probably going to be my favorite episode of the season because it was our Halloween episode.
Yes. Scary. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. What's cool about this is it's not only our longest episode, but it is also a reading episode of our guest reading Halloween horror stories. And I don't know about you, Matt, but they were a little bit frightening.
Yes. These stories some of them are downright terrifying and guaranteed to be unsettling.
I had quite a few unsettling moments and quite a bit of anxiety while listening to some of these stories. And I'm not just saying that. I really did. And started drinking after the first one.
Yes. I mean, everyone was... Well, beside me, everyone was drinking.
Yeah, there was a lot of drinking going on, and that is A-okay, because sometimes when you're facing the realities of horror, you need to have a drink. But on this episode, we had some wonderful writers, and they were Gina Rikiki, Jason Stanaland, Derek Prawl, and Kelley Outler. And I got to say that each one brought the noise, brought the pain, brought the horror.
Yes, by far.
Yeah. So anyway, we hope you all enjoy the episode. And again, happy Halloween from Lit&Bruised.
Ooh, Lit&Bruised.
Matt, I feel like you hate Halloween and you try to convince me that you don't.
I do hate Halloween.
Earlier, you were saying that you like Halloween, but you're just not that into it. But
Well, I like all the shit of it. I like all the horror stuff, but I have a tendency to become my costume.
Give me an example.
My bald spot.
You told me this story, refresh my memory, and let everybody else know too.
Okay, so one year for Halloween, it was when they were having, Scout Mob was having one of their forays at the goat farm. And my wife and I, we dressed up as future selves. So I got like a fat suit, like an oversized misfit shirt, cargo sweatpants, and shaved a bald spot, grayed myself up. The next day, when I went to clean myself up, I actually had new gray hair. And that spot never came back on my head.
So by future, you mean like 24 hours later?
Yeah. So I have this fear, like the Buffy the Vampire episode, where you could turn into your costume. So I never do it again.
I have actually never seen that episode. The costumes that I choose are always based on a bald character because I'm bald. So I don't really have a whole lot of options. It's typically, I've been Lex Luthor a number of times, but I can use wigs. I was actually Clark Kent in transition to Superman one year. And then the next year, I saw that fucking costume at Target, and I was like, some motherfucker saw me last Halloween and ripped off my idea because I was like wearing a suit, and I had like, it was like the suit was busting through, like the Superman suit was busting through my normal suit, and I was pissed. I feel like they owe me some money for that. Mm-hmm. But real quick, what's your favorite horror movie?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Like the original?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Just want to make sure you didn't run into that Jennifer Beal shit. So,
I mean, I won't deny I actually thought the remake was kind of good, but you can't mess with a movie that was put together in that way where the main actor almost died making it.
Oh, that's amazing. And I actually do like the Jennifer Beal version. I own a copy of it, and I typically watch it every Halloween. But not until I watch the original though. So, my favorite's Halloween, the original Halloween.
Okay.
The first Rob Zombie Halloween it's cool, it's good.
How are you feeling about the new one that's coming out?
Zombie's doing a third Halloween movie?
Oh, he's not. Danny McBride's doing it.
Ooh.
Jamie Lee Curtis, she's doing it, and Carpenter is actually producing it. He's fully behind, and he's actually even said he might make the music for it.
Holy shit. When is this coming out?
Next year.
I have something to look forward to. So if you you probably heard some laughter and some noises in the background because this is our Halloween episode. So happy Halloween. And with us today, we have 4 Atlanta-based writers that are going to be reading Halloween horror stories for you. So we want to keep within the theme and help you celebrate this wonderful, wonderful day. It's my favorite holiday. So with us right now, our very first reader is Kelley Outler. Kelley, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. I'm stoked to be here.
I've worked with Kelley on another project with Transgression, the reading series that I run with Laura Relier, which is actually turned into theater now. But back when it was a reading series, we did an installation around Halloween of 2015. And Kelley read a piece for us there, and she's going to be delivering that piece, a new, improved, updated piece.
Absolutely.
What is this piece called again?
It's called Excerpts from the Diary of Delora Hayes.
I remember it being really creepy because we were in a concrete
bunker.
Bunker, yeah. The conspiracy theory bunker. That might still be my favorite transgression.
It was certainly creepy. I don't know if the acoustics were ideal for the live reading, but the art installations were so fascinating.
Well, we also had the drunk guys in the installation next to us, like screaming and cussing the whole time.
Right. It did not provide the best background for this super spooky story.
Yeah, that was at Phoenix Fest 2015, which was at the warehouse down by the old Brave Stadium, Turner Field. And, when you're doing an event with 1,000 people in attendance, it's a little difficult to do a reading. But I thought you did an amazing job.
Well, thank you. It was certainly a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to hearing the story again because I remember, I think when you read it, it actually had like a dripping noise in the background.
It did.
Maybe we can add that in post.
I was kind of hoping a scratching and dripping sound would be included.
A possession is not complete without scratching and dripping and maybe crucifix masturbation.
Unfortunately, the third will be absent from my piece.
I was not expecting it, but
I'll see what I can do in post.
Matt, can you add that in post? Matt and I actually have a very religious background, so
as do I.
Yeah, tell us about it. What's your background with religion and spirituality?
Grew up Protestant, Southern Baptist to be specific, so tons of guilt now in my older years. Not religious any longer, but I think that it does add sort of like a cultural underpinning and understanding that helps you understand the world, or at least it colors the world in which you live. So even something like, a piece about demon possession, it has to involve some sort of spirituality.
When you were religious growing up, did you ever hear stories about demon possession?
Only through media. So never in the church itself. I think Baptists are a little bit reluctant to do, the laying on of hands and the sort of Pentecostal type things or the Catholic liturgies. It's more of like a subdued, quiet guilt and judgmental embodiment of...
I feel like you're talking about like your last relationship, maybe? JK.
We won't go there.
I don't even know what your last relationship was. It just sounded funny to me.
I came from an upbringing that did have a lot of that. So I got to lay hands on people who felt that they had demon possession and things like that.
So I think one's, religious background definitely comes out in their romantic relationships.
Oh, that's good. That's a lot for
right?
me to
Like
unpack.
Repression.
Ooh, that's like an essay or something right there in the works. Now, I grew up in a very similar background as Matt, so I remember seeing demon-possessed people, quote unquote. I have no stance on that. It's just interesting, in that environment, that's what they was said that these people were, and it's just a very interesting subject, even with my religious background as well. When I watch movies about demon possession, it still kind of messes with my mind a little
absolutely.
bit. It's such a weird concept.
It is. And I think many, thinking people, non-religious people are still kind of unnerved by the idea that these kinds of events have recurred throughout history over and over and over again with similar manifestations and phenomena. And so, when writing this piece, I was thinking I don't want it to be a ripoff, like a trite ripoff of The Exorcism of Emily Rose or something. It needs to touch on that, the grappling between, like, is this really happening? Can it be explained scientifically? And how does one reconcile events that one witnesses or hears about in a way that you can live with?
Yeah. They freak me out, but I still like to watch them.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it made it easier listening to your piece because I was like, I'm not seeing any visuals. Because even Emily Rose, the possession of, what was it called again?
Possession of Emily Rose or Exorcism of Emily Rose?
Exorcism,
yes,
yeah.
That's it.
I remember in the trailer, she like ends up in this like creepy position. And it was just, it was
the gnarled
perfectly.
bodies are always really...
I'd rather just hear it, like maybe like I hear the trailer on the radio. So that's kind of what I felt about hearing this piece that you're about to read for the first time. But at least for the first time on this podcast. Before we jump into that, though, what is your literary background, though?
Well, I am currently an English teacher. I teach at a private school in Alpharetta. So daily I read horrendous, frightening pieces by middle and high school students.
Are they Halloween themed? Did you teach a Halloween English class?
No, it's just
Halloween
a daily occurrence.
Yeah, they're just
Welcome to my essay. Today I'm going to compare and contrast two stories. They are similar in some ways, but different in others.
I would be horrified to read something that I wrote in 8th grade. Sometimes I'm horrified to read the things that I wrote last week, but hey, I got to keep moving forward. But we are so excited to have you here, and I think we should just go ahead. What do you think, Matt? You think we should jump into this?
Yes.
All right, so take it away, Kelley.
Excerpts from the Diary of Delora Hayes, registered nurse at Georgetown University Hospital, 1948 to 1949. February 20th, 1949, 9:50 p.m.
A Mount Rainier boy was checked in today under the name of Robbie Manaheim. I saw him roll past as I clocked in for my early morning shift. Strapped to a gurney and covered with a thin white sheet, he lay completely still. His parents, clutching one another, followed in haste. I'm not convinced this Manaheim is his actual name. They conducted the whole ordeal in near secrecy. A pale orderly led the three to a room at the end of an unoccupied wing. Shortly after their entrance, 2 doctors ushered in a Catholic priest and a Jewish rabbi. The men spoke in hushed tones, eyes cast to the floor, grave brows furrowed with consternation. We, the nurses and hospital personnel, were ordered to stay off the hall under any circumstances. Failure to heed this warning will result in your immediate termination. I have heard the boy is possessed by evil spirits, that he's being monitored as he undergoes rituals. But what does this word mean, possessed? Possessed allegedly by demons. But do these demons exist at all? Isn't there now some perfectly logical scientific explanation for the symptoms of so-called possession? I have learned about catalepsy, though I have yet to observe the condition in a patient. Is Manaheim, a sly boy of 14, the supreme illusionist? Or does he suffer from a gross misdiagnosis by virtue of his spiritualist parents?
February 23rd, 1949, 8:45 p.m.
Thinking on it, I have, as I'm sure most have, experienced the strange sensation upon walking into an empty room that some being has just hurried out, leaving behind only the ghost of its presence. An unexplained draft in a stagnant room, a distinct chilliness. I can recall a few instances in which I experienced a sudden compulsion to whip my head around in the direction of some movement in my periphery, only to find an empty corner, a motionless curtain. These experiences can be explained rationally. They're more to do with the body's sensitivity, indeed its internal systems that sometimes malfunction or misfire, rather than any real environmental stimuli. Still, there is something so frightening about the possibility of possession. Stricken with terror as a girl, I listened to the stories of Jesus casting out demons and of terrible names like Beelzebub, Moloch, Leviathan, and the great Lucifer. But what images did those Sunday school stories conjure? A man lying naked, babbling blasphemy, Christ's hands upon him. Villagers gathered around. One story proved particularly evocative amidst the dry, recurring incantations of those sessions. Mark, chapter 5. Jesus, having driven out multiple demons from a single man, sent the ghostly legion to a nearby herd of feeding pigs. 2,000 in number, the beasts rushed from a steep hillside, drowning in the lake below. For years, I dreamt of the pigs, their bodies bloated, gnarled, and unrecognizable in the possession, floating in the steaming black water. Since the boy arrived 3 days ago, a scratching sound has been reported in the halls of the hospital. I think I hear it, when I'm changing bedpans, when I'm sponge bathing elderly patients, when I'm scrubbing my own hands in the washroom. When I pause for tea, I hear it. They have been performing rites on the boy with little reprieve. The priest and rabbi come and go, never looking up from their steps. The 2 doctors alternate shifts, one leaving in the early morning hours, dejected and crestfallen, coats stained with what I assume to be perspiration and vomit.
February 24th, 1949, 10:30 p.m.
Today, my supervisor pulled me aside and ordered that I deliver hot water and instruments to the room at the end of the hall. I must admit that while apprehensive, I struggled to suppress a smile, latent curiosity bursting forth in my visage. Composed, "Of course, ma'am." What I witnessed was not the laying of hands on the back of a babbling man. What I witnessed made 2,000 drowned beasts seem a pretty picture. My heels clicked through the corridor as I approached the room. The lights overhead flickered on and off. There seemed a chill in the air as I drew near. The scratching grew louder, and I perceived, too, the sound of water dripping from indeterminate origin, much like the ticking of a clock. A cautious knock, and the door opened. 3 large men encircled the bed, blocking the boy from my view. The single window had been covered with a heavy green curtain. Simple candles atop the spare furniture provided only meager light. Behind the men, in the corner, the boy's mother sat in a hard-backed chair. Loose strands of hair clung to the shadowy edges of her drawn face. She fixed her gaze on a point just above the doorway where I stood. I again heard the dripping, and surveying the room, I failed to identify its source. The men turned to face me, and through the narrow alley of their bodies I saw the boy, hands and feet strapped to the bed, his thin body lay taut. From his mouth a voice, the first mammal sound, guttural, deep, and brutish, spoke in languages the attending men identified as Hebrew, Aramaic, and Latin. "He was baptized Lutheran," his mother uttered to no one in particular. How could it be that in this delirious state he was able to produce with such fluency these foreign tongues? Details have resurfaced, as if solidified in a dream. Suddenly the voices of all fell silent, and the sheet stained with all manner of bodily fluids began to stretch tight over the boy's frail body. Slowly, it moved without wrinkle to the floor. The boy's hands were visible, as were the priests, the doctors, and the mothers. I looked at my own hands, clutching the instruments and hot towels, the only items making sense of my visit. What force, then, drew the sheet tight? And stranger, the boy's now naked rib cage featured crude red lettering, L-O-U-I-S, etched on his skin as if by the claws of a careful animal. Who is this Lois? I treat bodies every day, some young and wrapped tight with translucent skin, some old and brittle. But despite their age and condition, each body in the whole of my short career has possessed an essential humanness. Warmth, even in chilliness, moisture, even in thirst, hope, however faint, in anguish. A presence, if dim, of a human mind. Not Robbie. A body is meant to move in certain ways, to bend backwards with practice, to curve over and around itself in loneliness, to stretch its muscles long for relief. But Robbie's defied all natural movement. His thin limbs broke through the restraints, cotton innards scattered to the floor as he pulled with such swiftness and force a sharp bed spring from the mattress. Wielding the weapon in his right hand, the boy rushed forth with a power and speed I have observed in no man, cutting deep into the attending priest's cheek. Blood dripped to the floor, seemingly in unison with a now louder sound.
February 25th, 1949, 3 a.m.
What is it keeps at bay these many vile spirits from below, tethered apart from our everyday, e'er threatening our soul's overthrow? I hear his cries in my dreams, his cries dredged from the core of the earth or below, from that deeper place that both exists and does not exist, ring through the corridors of the hospital, follow me into the February night, through the D.C. streets, into the diners where I seek the solace of the living, or the nearly living. His cries howl through alleyways, cut short in the frigid air as I hurry home. The dripping persists. I hear it now in my sleep, in my dreams. I wake to a sound that was before so natural and soothing, reminiscent of reposing alongside a mountain stream. I can compare the sound only to that of a washroom faucet not properly secured. It is the only sound in an otherwise silent house. It is the first sound one might hear in the early morning when consciousness is suspended in that bodiless place between the realms of sleep and wakefulness.
March 2nd, 1949, 7 p.m.
The priests perform over 30 rites, and now Robbie has been declared exorcised. After a period of quiet rest during which we tended to his wounds, he spent one night in the infirmary among other males of similar age, all suffering from influenza. How strange to be returned to one's peers after such an experience. Even to the ignorant observer, Robbie seemed out of place. He lay on a small cot in the center of the room, his dark eyes fixed on the ceiling for the whole of the night. After the final ritual, it is rumored that all through the hospital a cry of bestial anguish could be heard. Several moments later, it is said, the scent of sulfur hung heavy in the air. I, being out at lunch at the time the demons were supposedly driven out, can't be sure of any of this. And though I have confided to no other person the events witnessed in the room at the end of the hall, I find it comforting that others have also experienced, if only from a distance, these terrible happenings.
March 3rd, 1949, 10:45 p.m.
Why is it that demons seem only to possess those who actively draw near to Christ? Is it only the very devout and spiritually adventurous who become vulnerable to intruders? Never is it those who commit acts of evil against others, and never is it those who live a lukewarm life. Most of us remain safely in the middle realm, tightly bound to the earth, anchored by invented quotidian trappings. Has the house been sealed against winter? We are low on oil and flour. Did I offend this person or that with a careless statement? Shall I buy a new dress or save prudently? The dripping remains. It has become a ticking, a measured reminder that there is ever a presence of evil pervading the habitual, even wholesome activities of our daily lives. The percolating of coffee in the morning, the buttoning on of a newly ironed dress, the buttering of brown bread, the lathering of lavender soap in the evenings. Did they exist, these demons lurking behind leaves as I picked blackberries as a girl? Do they hide in the sharp creases of the Washington Post? Do they swirl about my shoes as I wait for the bus on 37th Street? Can they crawl through the tiny hole in the finger of my left-hand glove? Are they present behind my tongue when I exhibit anger and when I lie? What is even more frightening than the devil I witnessed in Robbie is the possibility at any given moment of a perverseness, of an overthrow of spirit beyond my will. What is it keeps at bay these many vile spirits from below, tethered apart from our everyday, e'er threatening our soul's overthrow? In truth, they are possessed by us, these demons. They simply keep quiet most of the time.
That really creeps me out. I don't want to think about a demon behind my tongue.
It's there, John, it's there.
I just had flashbacks of when you did read that at Phoenix Fest. Like, just the way the screens were blurring and just gave me that shivers all over again from the most terrifying reading that ever happened.
I really wanted to clap, but it probably wouldn't be good for the podcast. So, I'm just not doing that. But that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course, I'm glad for it to have resurfaced and found a new home.
Definitely. Are you going to read that to your students on Halloween?
That's a really good question. I have some finicky parents.
Just read it in detention. So Kelley's creepy.
That story's creepy.
She always just seemed very sweet and, maybe Baptist to me.
Just a little bit?
Yeah, but now her name in my mind will always be a Ramones song. Kelley is creepy.
That's a complete song that just writes. Is that a Ramones song?
No, but they have stuff like Sheena is a punk rocker and things like that. Annie is anorexic. I think that was one of their songs. Kelley is creepy.
Yeah, person, verb. That was the mode.
It's perfect. Like
2 minutes out.
Matt is masculine.
I am not masculine.
John has jaundice. So I was curious, Matt, if you have ever seen a ghost.
Ghost, no, but, and it kind of ties in with Kelley, I believed when I was younger that I saw a demon.
Where?
In my bedroom, sitting in a chair that I just woke up and it was just hunched like in the chair, almost like a Mr. Burns like scowl, and was just telling me things like, you're going to die. You're going to kill everyone around you.
Like the ghost of Mr. Burns?
Mr. Burns is always with us.
Yeah. I've never seen a ghost. I've actually, I believe that I have heard them, but I grew up in a haunted house. So everyone in my family, they've seen ghosts, except
like
for me.
Haunted house, like it had ghosts, or like there was always like, a haunted house being there selling tickets.
No, it was like full on haunted house. My brother even claims that a baby doll that was in the house, that's another story of how we got a baby doll in the house, but would walk around. Yeah.
No one should have baby dolls in the house. I think why have we not culturally accepted that as a society?
Well, especially a house full of boys, which there's nothing wrong with boys owning dolls, but I was 5. I saw it at show and tell. I thought it was rad. I told my mom I liked it. Next thing you know, I'm getting that shit for Christmas.
That's where it all starts. Christmas is where it starts.
Yeah, man. You get fucked up shit. Its name was Baby Talk. I'm not kidding. And then we kept it for years, and I never even wanted the thing. So next up on the podcast, the Halloween episode, I guess that's what we're going to call it, we have a wonderful writer from here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Halloween and Bruised.
Halloween and Bruised. Lit and... I don't know, man. I'm trying to come up with something cool, but...
I'll figure it out in post.
Yeah. Let's do this. We figure out everything in post. So, but anyway, we have a wonderful writer from Atlanta, Georgia. His name is Jason Stanaland. What's really cool about Jason is this is his first reading. I've known Jason for over a decade now. Only a few months ago realized that he was basically hiding his talents from the world and writing in secret. So anyway, Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Awesome.
Are you like super fucking nervous right now?
Yeah, unbelievably nervous. You can probably hear it in my voice.
My first reading was at the Wren's Nest, or where I think like Brer Rabbit was written, and I think I read at 60 miles per hour, and I was terrified, and it was like about sex, and there was children in the audience, and I couldn't see the audience, and I was so terrified. Matt actually hosted the reading, and I have a feeling that you're going to do way better than I did there.
Now you're sitting in a bar that I have to try to reach, but my fingers are sweating, and I'm going to be reading off of my iPhone, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to keep swiping.
It's okay. Well, swipe right, my friend. Matt, How was your first reading? What was that? Was it terrible or was it awesome? What
I
happened?
did open mics.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and they were all very terrifying, and I just saw them as just to emotionally do it. Just get the physicalness out of it. Figure out the patterns that I needed to do. I didn't care if anybody, how they received them. Actually, most of the times I would just read and then leave.
That's a great plan. I cared about my first 10 readings, and then after that I thought, I don't give a shit anymore. Because I can't care. I'm probably not good, but I'm going to get this out of my system. So, Jason, however you want to do this, you just do it, man. And
right on.
If you need counseling afterwards, because like everybody that's a writer basically needs counseling. So, and this is kind of therapeutic, but we're super stoked to have you on here, and we're excited that this is your first reading. I honestly consider it an honor that you would do your first reading on the Lit&Bruised podcast.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah. So give us some context. Let us know what are you going to be reading about today?
So I was in New Orleans a couple of years ago, and I went on like a ghost tour. And
I've done that.
What kind of tourist
Orleans.
does that?
I've done that shit.
Do. Yeah,
in New Orleans.
It seems super cheesy, and it kind of is, but
real quick,
it was awesome too.
Did you all meet up at a bar?
I think so, dude. I think we may have gone on the same one.
Was it like a weird old dude?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a guy. I think the guy was actually missing a leg. The one that did.
I can't remember. It's been a very long time, but I did a ghost tour in New Orleans like 7 years ago. Met up at a bar, and then they just walked you around town and told you about creepy shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you heard this, like the story, the same story.
What is? I'll stop rambling. What is the story?
So I'm not generally a horror writer per se, and you reached out and said, hey, like doing a Halloween episode, write some horror stuff, and my mind first went to like, what is some of the most horrifying stories I've ever heard, and I started to think about this story that I had heard on this ghost tour, and it's about some of the worst atrocities that probably have ever occurred in humanity. And so like it just, the story really struck a chord with me. It's really kind of a horror story within a horror story. And to me, this particular story, as I read it, the message that I think I was really trying to attach to is that, some of the horrific atrocities that have happened throughout human history, there's no way to justify them. And there's a juxtaposition, I think, in the story about progress versus inhibition of the human condition. So I was really trying to capture this, like, sort of the horror of the story, but also illustrate that, a lot of people that commit horrific acts, like, really try to justify it in certain ways. So this is a true story. The guy that was doing the tour said, hey, sometimes like the true stuff is actually like a million times more horrifying than stuff we can even conjure up in our minds. So this is a true story, but I, of course, took some creative liberties to change a lot of the details. But it's, that's where I landed on this particular story.
That sounds really complex. And I think that most like human atrocities typically are. There's a lot of ego, a lot of madmen doing crazy, fucked up shit. And I think from your story, it's actually a mad woman in this case. So,
it's a combination, actually.
Is it? Okay.
Of a man and a woman. Yeah.
I'm not going to talk any further. We're going to let you take it away.
Yeah. All right. Well, this story is called Margaret's World. A dense fog rolled in that morning, the kind that could cloud an observer's judgment. A young boy and his father strolled down Royal Street in the French Quarter, which was otherwise void of life. This is what they call a whiteout, boy, the man said. The boy could barely see the outline of his father in the milky air. It felt thick around them, impairing their senses. A sudden shrill rang out in the distance. It sounded like a dying animal calling out for help, or letting its voice escape to heaven. What was that? The boy asked, frightened. Just keep walking, his father replied, and hurry up. One of the largest Creole mansions in the French Quarter crept up over his right shoulder. It was barely visible, but he could feel it. Its ornate, wrought iron balconies and elegant Baroque facades spoke of wealth far above the boy and his father. It stood 3 stories high, with a rectangular floor plan. The man caught a shadow of it in his peripheral, noticing the ghostly ferns cast a gray shadow in the thick fog. Inside, a frail, haggard female slave took up plates from the madam's breakfast. Her hands trembled as she took up fine china covered in bits of beignets and assorted fruits. The fog outside let just enough light through the floor-to-ceiling windows to create an ominous, eerie feeling in the room. Fire burning in the fireplace cracked and snapped. A puppeteer for dancing shadows on the walls and across the madam's antebellum dress. "I bet you want those scraps, don't you?" said the madam. "We wouldn't want you to choke to death, child." The two made brief eye contact, and the slave quickly looked away and closed her eyes. Fear crawled onto her spine just beneath the skin. She closed her eyes, and a tear escaped onto her cheek. She was terrified that she would be sent back to the basement. She was the only one that had ever left that place that she knew of. Perhaps it was her cooking, or the doctor's sexual appetite. The time she spent there took over her thoughts. On the day she had been taken to the basement, she had dropped an ornate porcelain dish from Provence. It had been a gift to the madam. She was told she would have to be punished. The doctor had taken her by the arm and led her to a door amongst many doors along a long hallway. "Come with me, Margaret," he had said. He unlocked the door and opened it to exactly 9 cold concrete steps that descended down into darkness. Margaret could not count them, but she could feel them there. Beneath her bare feet, she could feel the results of hard labor. She was all too familiar with it. At the bottom of the steps stood a metal door that was bolted tightly onto its concrete frame. The metal lock held the door's mouth closed, keeping it from speaking of what was going on inside. There, at the bottom of the stairs, the doctor stopped and unlocked the door. Margaret was suddenly struck with a deep feeling of fear. Her body began to tremble, and she began to become light in the head. Sweat continued seeping from her pores on her skin, despite the chill in the air. As the doctor opened the door, inch by inch, she felt death creep toward her. The grisly scene in front of her sank its teeth and claws into her eyes. The first thing she saw was a large wooden table. Scattered about on top of the table were chains and human remains. Margaret's eyes then focused on the wall behind the table. There she saw badly mutilated bodies chained to the concrete. One was missing his lower jaw. A large gaping wound stretched from his upper row of teeth to the sagging flesh of his neck. Almost looked like he was wearing a handkerchief made of human skin. His head drooped down, as if his jaw had been there to hold it upright. The room held a still, putrid smell in its belly. Flies flew about the room, feeding on the liquids that leaked from decomposing body parts. Several pillar candles burned throughout the room. Shadows danced across the wall as their tongues flickered in and out of the slaves' wounds and orifices. The concrete walls were stained with the room's horrific history. Blood splashed against it, darkening and then fading over time. Another man on the opposite side of the room was attached vertically against the wall with his arms outstretched, unconscious or dead. His legs and cock had been amputated, and now leaked of blood and rot from an advanced infection. Patches of skin on his face and torso had been removed more recently and sewn to his legs as if they were being used as bandages. Then Margaret's eyes fixed on a small table on the left side of the room. A tray rested on top of the table, and on the tray rested a set of metal tools. They were neatly arranged in rows and appeared to be clean and sterile, a stark contrast to the rest of the scene. Margaret's primitive mind reacted to the threat in front of her. Unfortunately, Her first instinct was to freeze, which wasn't going to help her. Fight or flight wouldn't have either. Margaret stood in the doorway frozen, as if the cold air had taken every muscle in her body prisoner. "Don't worry," the doctor said. "I know this looks bad, but it's for the greater good." He closed and locked the door from the inside, put the keys in his pocket. A woman chained to a nearby wall seemed to be fully intact, but had been beaten badly. She appeared to be an older woman, though it was hard to tell what had been more cruel to her, time or circumstances. She lay on the floor lifeless, chained to the wall like an animal. She was naked except for a large iron spike collar and the many open wounds that she wore. The doctor looked at Margaret. "Madame Delphine has informed me that you broke one of her most prized plates. That is unfortunate. For that, she feels that you must be punished. I don't believe in punishing our slaves. So, she and I have struck a deal." A small ray of hope flickered in Margaret's mind, like the flame from the candle beside her. She focused on the light it cast upon the doctor's face rather than the darkness. Perhaps he would be her savior. Perhaps this was just a lesson to show her what could happen to her if she faltered again. She'd have another chance. "I don't believe in punishment for our slaves, so we compromise. Instead of punishing you, I will use you to conduct my work. It's a simple way to avoid harsh punishments and help the world achieve breakthroughs in dentistry and other medical sciences. You know that I am a well-known and respected dentist, Margaret. Much of my success is because I don't believe in punishments and because I do believe in the importance of careful research. Do you understand?" Margaret's heart sank. It was as if she had been given something and then it had been immediately snatched away. It was as if that something were her life. "Please, doctor," she pleaded in a faint, defeated whisper. The doctor stood by the small table and calmly arranged the shiny, sharp metal tools. He looked at Margaret, his beady eyes peering at her through his small circular glasses, as he adorned himself in a leather apron that was covered in dark stains. He clasped his hands, one on top of the other. He approached Margaret and led her to the large table. She fought him as best she could, exhausting her last chance at leveraging a survival instinct. He changed her tightly to the table and began to turn a crank which tipped her slightly upright. "Now let's begin." He took a small cylinder-shaped, sharply pointed object from the tray and took up a hammer in the other hand. He positioned the tip of the pick against a jagged edge of one of Margaret's molars, and he began to pound on the other end of the hammer. Pain signals rushed to her brain, a system that was built to help her survive now working against her. Nature can be the cruelest of all. She could immediately taste blood and bone in her mouth. She could feel bits of tooth enamel as she moved her tongue across the inside of her mouth. This is the kind of pain that overrides everything, even the fear. For a few moments, her entire world became nerve endings. The doctor dumped a bucket of water onto her face and into her mouth. She gasped for air. He then took a small, sharp hook and began surgically removing portions of flesh. Tooth by tooth, molar by molar, incisor by incisor, canine by canine, he carved out his path. In times like this, the mind can become its own prison, or it can become a path to freedom. Margaret was a slave. She knew how to use her mind to free herself. She visited an open field and ran her hands through the tall grass. She remembered a time when she was young and had been living on a plantation. The golden sunsets and the smell of fresh air and cut grass. She went back there. She tried to go all the way back to infancy, before she had teeth and tits to take away. She traveled as far as she could in her mind. and then darkness came. The doctor looked at her and unbuttoned his pants. "Wake up now, Margaret. There's a lot of blood in your mouth," he said. Margaret opened her eyes. "We wouldn't want you to choke to death, child." "Did you hear me, girl? We wouldn't want you to choke to death," Madame Delphine continued, as she stared at Margaret. "You'd have too much trouble with this wonderfully baked beignet without those pretty teeth. Now feed what's left to the dogs." Margaret was at the end of a chain that kept her in the kitchen and dining area. She extended her body to reach the last few dishes. "Yes, ma'am," she replied. She glanced out the window and noticed a few shadowy figures moving through the thick fog. She wondered if they had heard the screams of Samuel, a dear old friend of hers who had recently been taken to the basement. That evening, Margaret took a bottle of whiskey from the kitchen pantry. She opened the bottle and pulled a sip of the spirit into her mouth. She let it stand in her mouth for a few moments. Its numbing effect felt good on her mutilated gums. She poured the rest of the bottle on the logs in the stove and lit it on fire. There was only one way to end all of this: to burn the motherfucker to the ground.
Jesus, man. Whew. That was amazing. Hey,
Thank you.
Get your first one under your belt now.
Yeah, it felt good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That was an amazing story. It's super fucked up, but
I feel so uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
I need to go watch some Friends, or I don't know, just something.
Yeah, it was obviously it's a controversial subject. It's horrific what happened, but it's a true story. So
that was Madame Delphine's house
correct.
that Nicolas
Lord.
Cage bought.
Yes.
Yeah, which is even weirder. Like, why would you want to own that?
Well, that's actually what brought me to the story. I lied up front. It was just because I really like Nicolas Cage. And,
Yeah.
I was researching his life, and that's what
Dude.
brought me to this.
Ghost Rider. I don't know why he didn't get nominated for an Academy Award for that.
He's an
Didn't they make two of them?
amazing. I don't know. I really don't.
Did they make two Ghost Riders?
I have no idea.
Face Off.
Oh man, him and John Travolta. Shit.
Wow.
That shit was awesome. Anyway, man, I could talk about John Travolta and Nicolas Cage all day long.
Con Air. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for reading that grotesque piece, but I know it's based on a true story, and I think things like that, even though they're painful to hear, I mean that was the fucking reality of that shit, and it's super fucked up, and we appreciate you sharing your skills with us.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Right on.
Take care. Matt, did you watch Stranger Things season 1?
I did.
What are your thoughts on it?
It's a show.
You don't like it?
I mean, I like it, and it wasn't a waste of time. It wasn't like watching like the 5th Police Academy.
I didn't know they had a 5th Police Academy.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Obviously not. I mean, it didn't have Steve Guttenberg in it for one.
Well, I mean, it can be bad, but still entertaining.
And then that's still not as bad as the 6th one.
How many did they make?
I think 7.
Jesus. Was the guy that made sound effects on all of them?
Of course, yeah.
That was the draw.
I mean, yeah, because they went to Miami, they went to Russia.
Oh my god.
Just more and more field trips.
I imagine by like the 7th one, like he's like the star of the show, or the movie.
I just love that I've turned a Halloween podcast into Police Academy, and I could easily turn it into Simpsons references about Police Academy.
Ooh, you know what I love though? Growing up, some of my favorite Halloween things to watch were the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, and then it sound white trash, but I don't care. The Roseanne episodes, they were so good. I loved it. And then I just saw the other day that Roseanne is coming back. They're bringing Roseanne back.
They're making it.
I don't know how I feel about that, but I think it's kind of awesome because maybe I'll get another Halloween episode.
I don't think I ever saw any of the Roseanne Halloween episodes.
Dude, they're so good. The very first one in the first season, they turn their house into a haunted house, and it's awesome. It is so good.
If you could turn your apartment into a haunted house, what would be the one thing you'd want in it?
Shit. I could go with like one of those like crazy mechanical like dragons or something that they have at like the Netherworld. Have you ever been to the Netherworld? It's up on Jimmy Carter.
No, I haven't. I was trying.
man.
I think I've been to a sex club that was called that once.
The Netherworld.
You need to go to Netherworld
I
on
don't
mushrooms.
know, man. Like,
That is what's up.
the coolest haunted house that I ever went to wasn't even a haunted house. It was at a church in northern Kentucky.
Was it a hell house?
No, it wasn't. They didn't try to get you saved or anything. But what was going on with it was that it was a maze in their gymnasium, and you walked around, and it took you like 45 minutes to an hour. And if you were not really bright and not good at problem solving, it would take you like 2 hours to get out of it. It was awesome. They even made these tunnels out of like folding tables. And I think they had to stop the maze one time because one of the folding tables actually fell in on somebody in the tunnel. But you'd go through the you would
So
crawl
now it's
through.
actually haunted.
Yeah,
There's a dead kid.
There's
in
a
there.
dead kid in that gymnasium in Florence, Kentucky. But they would have
Folding
strobe
chair
lights.
tunnels. It feels like a get out of detention escape.
It was weird, man. It was very like jerry rigged. It was just like, you're like, what is going on here? But when you're 10, it's awesome. You know,
Yeah,
so
right on.
maybe I would make a tunnel with strobe lights through my 1-bedroom apartment. So anyway, as you might hear him giggling, we have Derek Prawl. Hey, how are you?
Doing okay, man.
You doing all right?
Yeah.
I love
think so.
you.
I love you too, Joe.
I'm so glad that you're here with us. Derek, we've done a couple of readings together. We actually did a Halloween reading together last year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, for Phoenix Fest 2016.
Mm-hmm. That was my apartment was haunted by a ghost.
Oh,
and I
yeah, that
like,
was a great story.
kind of possessed.
I really liked that reading. That was a reading I hosted with Winston Blake Wheeler Ward, the 17th.
That guy has too many names.
Junior, yeah. And I remember what was ridiculous about that was he was the co-host and he was like a head.
Yeah, he was just like in a desk with just his head popped.
Yeah, he was like a head.
He's like trying to do banter.
And he wanted to do it.
You had
And I
to
was-
feed him beer.
Yeah, in between readers, I would have to feed him things, and it was super weird, but it was super fun. It almost felt like a talk show, but you were a reader on that.
It was.
So
It was a lot of fun.
Every time I call on you, it's always for something pretty dark because you also were in the second transgression, Born Under a Bad Sign. You played the Deliverance Mountain Men.
Yeah, Mountain Man.
How was that for you? How was that like writing that piece?
It was strange because, like, at the time, like, when you assigned it to me, I hadn't read Deliverance, and I had never seen the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I just knew about it kind of, like, culturally, in the sense that, like, it's...
I'm from Georgia.
Yeah, you know, like, bow and arrow and rape scene.
Yeah.
So,
Squeal like a pig.
it's pretty rough.
Man, I'll tell you what, though. You brought it home, and I heard a lot of feedback afterwards.
There's good Juggalo references in it.
You did have Juggalo references. That was amazing. But I mean, that was a lot of people's favorite pieces, and it was very intense. So, after doing a Halloween reading and reading as one of the Mountain Men for Deliverance, we were very excited to have you on the show.
Yeah,
can you
thanks.
tell us about something about the piece?
Yeah, so this is about sleep paralysis. It's obviously a sleep disorder that I've had since like early college, and it's a pretty scary thing, like when you don't know what it is, and so it's been coming back recently for me in like more intense and strange ways, like that I'm not really used to. So,
Now, what's involved in sleep
paralysis?
Yeah.
Well, it's I kind of explain it in the story, but it's basically when you go to sleep and you go into deep sleep, to REM sleep, your brain sends a signal to your body. It basically like disconnects, so that you don't act out your dreams, so that you're not moving around. So the brain wakes up, but it doesn't send the signal to the body that it's woken up, and so you're paralyzed essentially, but fully awake. and it usually comes with hallucinations and like intense feelings of paranoia and anxiety and things like that. It's not a fun thing.
It sounds like your body is trying to like deal with like night terrors, but it's like making it worse. Kinda.
The way that it manifests with me specifically, it used to be just the straight sleep paralysis, but now it's turned into like lucid nightmares almost, where I'm aware that I'm in a sleep state, but I'm fully aware that I'm in a dream.
Oh, wow.
And I can kind of not really control it, but be an active player in it. Like, you know, like when you dream, it basically just happens to you. It's like you're watching a movie in a sense. But this is a lot different than it.
So you're like living the horror story you're about to read us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I kind of jazzed it up a bit, but this is something that I experience on a pretty regular basis.
Do you sleep much?
No.
I would feel like I would not want to go to sleep. I'd be like one of the teenagers in the Freddy Krueger movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't want to go to sleep,
Yeah,
man.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Yeah, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I hope you don't end up like Johnny Depp, though. That would be terrible. Like,
Oh, would it?
I think there's every situation in life you could sum up with. I hope you don't end up like Johnny Depp.
yeah,
You're
seriously.
out buying clothes. Hey, don't buy anything Johnny Depp would.
Yeah.
Hey, don't look like that guy.
Don't start dressing like a pirate. Well, we're going to bring it down now for the Lit&Bruised audience. Here's Derek Prawl with some sort of sleep paralysis horror story. It's not a very good intro. It made you laugh, and I have a feeling this isn't going to be funny at all.
It wasn't a good lead up for,
all right.
for what I'm about to read.
Take it away, Derek.
All right, great. The first time it happened was when I was in college. I had fallen asleep in a study room and woke up with a janitor yelling at me. He was a tall black man. He was dressed in coveralls, and the shadow from his baseball cap covered his eyes. I think he was trying to tell me to leave, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. It sounded like words, but the words didn't have any meaning, and he just wouldn't stop. It was a weird scene for sure, but something about the whole situation didn't feel quite right. There was something off. Normally, if you're yelling at someone, it's accompanied by gesturing with movement, but this man didn't move at all. He just stood there, about 4 feet behind me, screaming nonsense, perfectly still. I was confused, obviously. Why was this guy so angry at me? I mean, yeah, I probably shouldn't have been asleep there, but it's not like finding a sleeping student in a university is an uncommon occurrence. I wanted to get up and explain myself, but my body wouldn't work. Everything was frozen. My head felt glued to the desk in front of me, and my limbs were dead weight. The janitor walked towards me now, still yelling, getting closer to me, looming over me, screaming the words with no meaning. He didn't touch me, but as he bent over, I could feel his face next to mine. My eyes were darting around as I tried to speak, but my tongue was limp in my mouth. All I could do was let out a weak groan as I heard the janitor, now screaming directly into my ear, "You're gonna kill yourself." And then I woke up. Sleep paralysis is what the doctors would later tell me that I was experiencing. Essentially, when you go into REM sleep, the mind separates from the body so you don't physically act out your dreams. When you have a paralytic episode, the mind wakes up, but it doesn't signal the body to do the same. You're fully awake, but you can't move. When I told the doctors about the janitor, they explained that it's a common occurrence for episodes to come with hallucinations. They said that these hallucinations can't hurt you, and while you're experiencing them, it makes it worse if you panic. The best thing to do, they said, is to not fight it, to just relax and to let it pass. So I learned to live with it. I'd have an episode about once a month, and it was usually when I would fall asleep at a weird time or in a strange place. I'd wake up unable to move, my limbs dangling and my tongue numb. Sometimes I'd see the janitor, sometimes I couldn't, but he was always there. I knew he was there. I could feel him looking at me. I sensed his hate. I'd hear his muffled screams from inside my walls or coming out of my sink as I struggled to snap out of the rigor. As I grew up, it got a little better. By my late 20s, the episodes were less frequent, and when I was experiencing them, I could recognize them for what they were, and I could get out of it pretty quickly. Usually it was just a matter of relaxing, falling back to sleep, and waking up naturally. It usually felt like I was kind of sinking back into my own body. But now, something's changed. I've started looping. I call it looping because no one can really give me a better term for it. The doctors don't really know what to tell me other than it's somehow related to whatever sleep disorder causes the paralysis. I wake up, I can't move, I realize it's an episode, and I fall back asleep. But I'm not really asleep. I'm in this in-between state. I'm in my room, in my bed. Sometimes I'm watching myself, and sometimes I'm inside my own head, but I always do the same thing. I get up, I stand on my bed for a few minutes, and then I hurl myself headlong out of my 6th floor window. I feel the broken glass rip my skin and the bone-shattering concussive force when I hit the ground. It's vivid. It's horrible. The sky is always the same color brown, and there's a reddish fog in the woods behind my house. Everything's wet, like it just rained, and the trees look rusted. The janitor's out there, on the edge of my lawn, by the trees, watching me fall. When I hit the ground, I wake up in my bed, and I do it again, and again, and again. It goes on all night. All night, I fling myself out of the window and smash into the ground below. When I'm outside of my body, watching myself do it, I can see my neck break and my limbs bend the wrong way. Sometimes I see the janitor walk up to my body, but I always wake up and do it again before I can see what he's going to do. I usually have to call out of work the next morning because I don't feel like I really slept. I spend the day trying to rest, but these looping episodes are happening more and more frequently now. I'm always tired. It's at least once a week. I spent last night throwing myself out of the window, and I woke up sore and exhausted again. My alarm snapped me out of it around 9:30, but when I got out of bed, I felt this sharp pain in my foot. Stuck in the arch was a 3-inch long sliver of broken glass. When I checked my window panes, they were all intact.
That gave me a lot of anxiety. Like I was
so glad I took extra medicine today.
Yeah, I was like, who needs a drink right now? Jesus,
right.
That was amazing and terrifying.
Thanks, man.
So, is this how much of that is true?
So, I definitely have sleep paralysis episodes.
Yeah.
Like probably about once a month, and that's true. I understand what it is, and I can realize it for what it is, and I can usually get out of it pretty quickly. The looping thing just recently started.
Wow.
Where it's different than the sleep paralysis for sure. It's definitely more of a lucid dream. And it's the suicide over and over and over and over again. And I mean, that'll last for hours.
Man, fuck this janitor. Jesus,
right?
Man. That guy sucks. Like, come on, man. He's supposed to come to the rescue and help you out a little bit.
Yeah, just fucking leave me alone.
He's like
right?
egging it on over there, man. No, man, that was. I think when you have a story like that, and you're mixing fact with fiction, and you can really take it dark. It's like a lie, the best kind of lie is one that's mixed with truth.
Sure.
So,
of
like
course.
with the horror story, it's like something like that.
Yeah,
that is
exaggerated a little.
Yeah.
Make it a little weirder.
But isn't that a way to kind of like deal with the fear of what this is?
Well, I mean, honestly, like this is going to expose me a little bit, but I'm a fan of hallucinogenic drugs, and so I'm used to those types of states now, and being kind of like.
Does that help you with like control?
A little bit. It helps me. I mean, at least with the sleep paralysis, it helps me to understand that okay, this is an altered state that you're in right now. It's not real. It's not anything that's threatening. It's not anything that's going to hurt you. So you can just relax and let it kind of pass over you,
Yeah.
like it's like waves. Like it'll eventually be gone.
Yeah. Like how you deal with a trip.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they've been getting weirder and harder to deal with. Like the other night, I had a paralysis episode. And in the story, I mentioned that nothing has ever like physically touched me. Like nothing is, but this one was much different. Like something was like on my back choking me, and I felt like there was a hand inside of my back grabbing my spine and shaking me. Yeah, I mean it's not a lot of fun, but like once you're experienced with it and once you understand what's going on, it's easier to just kind of like let it just be the experience rather than interacting with the experience,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
I mean, that's. We appreciate you sharing that with us, especially because it's very vulnerable, to like put yourself on display and then to even say, I'm going to use this for entertainment value now.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, you guys better be entertained because this is Derek's life, you assholes.
I hope you guys liked the story.
Yeah,
Welcome to art.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Exactly.
We really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We will hopefully have you back on soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As long as we don't get complaints about your story. just kidding. Thanks, Derek.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Sorry, I needed a drink there because I'm getting a little. I'm a little frightened.
You're getting a little antsy in the pantsy.
These stories are kind of kicking my ass.
Yeah, you're all shifting over there, like you're just wanting to run around, get away from this.
I do, and this was my idea. I was like, hey, let's do a Halloween episode and have people come in here and read us scary stories.
In the afternoon on a Saturday.
Yeah, and they're fucking with me, man.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little fucked up.
Well, I'm hoping all our listeners are feeling that way. I mean, to keep feeling freaked out and keep on listening, of course.
I feel like they're always freaked out when they listen to this podcast. They have to listen to me talk off and on for an hour. So we were talking earlier, and I mentioned to you, Matt, that I haven't had a nightmare in like 25 years, and I'm afraid that I might have one tonight. How are your nightmares?
I have not had dreams in, I don't know, like 10 years?
Wasn't Lit&Bruised one of your dreams, Matt?
No. Lit&Bruised was not one of my dreams.
Like, this is more work to do. Another project with John Carroll. Jesus. Well, to finish off our horrific set of readers, we have the wonderful, beautiful... I know.
That's so nice.
Inside and out.
What?
Yeah.
Holy crap. I'll pay
Gina.
you $5 later.
You don't have to pay me. That's free.
Okay.
Gina Rikiki is here with us to deliver bone-chilling scares. I don't know.
I like that you say that with a shrug.
Yeah, I'm like, bone-chilling.
I mean, I don't know. I guess the proof will be in the spooky pudding.
Proof in the pudding.
Spooky pudding, y'all.
So I'm not sure when I met you. I feel like I've known you all my life, but I know it's only probably been within the last 5 or 6 years.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen you do a lot of things, and you always kick ass.
Most of them legal.
Legal,
Most
yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Matt was telling me that you won Right Club the other day.
I did. Oh, thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
man,
Oh,
I'm getting polite applause.
The
and
Peanut Gallery.
compliments.
I am so sorry.
Getting day beers. This is
I
great.
know. Fiji water.
Oh, y'all. I don't know if y'all know this at home, but when you show up, you get a fresh, unopened, frosty square bottle of Fiji. And I'm not talking about the short one either. It's like, how many ounces? Yeah, no, it's a liter, guys. It's a full liter.
I mean, it's not like those other literary podcasts where you get an already opened one.
Yeah, well, I mean, then you don't know if, somebody spiked it or spit in it or something like that. And
Got this out of the crick.
exactly.
I do want to mention one thing, though, is at one point, Derek Prawl went into the bathroom when he first got here and then came out drinking a beer. There was no beer in that bathroom.
To be fair, I did see him crack it before he went in.
Okay,
And I was
okay.
like, is he taking that beer in? And I was like, yeah, good man.
For my
Good
next
man.
trick,
Yeah.
it's like,
But watching the wonderment on everyone's faces when he came out with it, I was like, I'm just going to stay quiet. I want them to have that Willy Wonka sense of fascination. Where did that beer come from?
the PBR smells like PBR.
Exactly.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, Gina, well, actually two things. One is,
Ask whatever you like.
what was your favorite Halloween costume that you've done?
Oh, man. I went through, Halloween has been one of my favorite holidays for a really long time. And then in recent years, it became a very unfavorite holiday because it became like a BS anniversary day, which no longer matters. But when I was a kid, we used to get really, really into Halloween. They're laughing behind me. I love it.
Peanut Gallery.
Peanut Gallery.
Calm it down over there.
So drunk. And my mom is the queen of weird, janky DIY. And it's on her side of the family, we call it Wagnerizing something. And so we made a tooth fairy outfit for me. I was the tooth fairy one year, and my mom got me white Play-Doh so that I could sculpt a bag of teeth. And I carried around a bag of teeth. As an adult looking back on it, I mean...
How old were you?
I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, something like that.
I don't think there's an answer that makes that acceptable.
No. I mean, but
I was
they were
a-
drying for a week, in our laundry room, and I remember skipping in there to check on my teeth. Are my teeth dry yet? Can I put them in my pouch? And it's not like it was a visible part of the costume. They were in an opaque pouch all night. And so I would have to randomly pull other trick-or-treaters aside and open up my pouch and be like, I'm the tooth fairy, and jangle them into my hand. And I'm assuming that I probably scarred some random kids. I wonder why I was a lonely child.
It could have just been candy corn and you never showed anybody.
Yeah, no,
But no.
I wanted the verisimilitude of
By
a
any chance,
bag
do you
of
still
fake
have
teeth.
these fake teeth?
No, but I do have my wisdom teeth in a bag. When they cut them out of my head, I asked if I could keep them. And they were like, sure, it's fine. This is Alabama. Everything goes.
What do
so
you,
they gave me a bag of them.
What do you give me for Halloween this year?
I don't know, because this is kind of the first year that in a long time that I'm thinking that I actually want to celebrate it. And I love doing makeup and costumes, and I have tons of wigs and all that kind of stuff. Although I will say that I've been doing a really mean, notorious RBG for about a year now. So
Oh, yeah,
little
yeah.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Where she looks super disappointed in everybody all the time because she's so tired, y'all. She's been
fighting
trying
for so long.
She's been fighting for so long, and we're all a bunch of dicks. And now she's getting towards the end of her life, and she's like, "For what? For what? Thanks,
the payoff?
assholes." So it might be her.
Yeah. So speaking of lots of wigs and other stuff,
Yeah.
you are my Sunday savior.
Aw,
With Dad's Garage live stream of
Gina's Garbage Hour.
Yes. For anyone that does not,
Let's hope it's
not
still
aware.
running by the time that this airs. Something horrible doesn't go wrong.
Well, let's not bring that omen on at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, it's Sundays at 11.
It's Sundays at 11 a.m. And essentially, the idea came from I had a yard sale and it went really badly. So I started live streaming from my yard sale, and that was more successful than my yard sale. Like, all my friends were watching my live streaming instead of like actually coming out and buying stuff to help pay medical bills. And I was like,
so that didn't help. Like,
no, my medical bills. Like, Emery is like hunting me.
They don't.
Oh no, they're gonna mess me up.
Yeah,
You can't get away from that. So Dad's Garage was essentially where I'm a general company member. They were like, hey, we've been trying to figure out how to live stream something. Do you want to do a show? So yeah, it's essentially an hour where I go through boxes or bags of stuff that people want to get rid of in their lives. I don't know what's in them beforehand. I just go through them live, and we have lots of jokes. And I have all of my cassettes, and then I have other people's cassette tapes, and I have my husband's grandmother's like 30-plus-year-old tape player, which I've had to start punching in order to make it play. And there's like a drawing challenge, and there's a Q&A portion. It's just essentially, the idea is that it's just something stupid that you can watch while you have a hangover.
11 a.m. on a Sunday. It's
yeah, if you're pooping and you're like, I have my phone.
Is it on Facebook?
It is.
Okay.
It's live streams on the Dad's Garage Theater Company Facebook page. And
where do you record it at? Because you got that like locker room beside you.
That is actually in Dad's Garage in one of their stairwell hallways. And it's really dusty and janky. And I
almost wish I didn't know, because I kind of imagined.
Well, why'd you ask, man?
I don't know. I like to disappoint myself, I guess.
Well, it's good that you know me then, because I will keep that stream going.
Because I always imagine you were like breaking into a school.
Well, the idea is that we're eventually going to take it. Like, I did one of them from my parents' basement, not the restaurant, my parents' actual basement, in front of their couch. I just sit on the floor. And it's just an hour of stupid stuff because the world's on fire right now and everybody's having super tough times. So it's just something free and dumb where you can watch it and hopefully have a good time. And then I donate things afterwards, everything that people give me.
Life's rough. Maybe we'll hear a Phil Collins tape.
Absolutely, man. Finding that Phil Collins tape was just like, oh. And then I found all of my mom's Billy Joel tapes. So my buddy and I are going to do a special garbage hour that's just all Joel hole. Which is when you
jump into the Joel hole.
Exactly. The water is great. It is like Long Island Sound water. And you just go all the way to the bottom, and it's a great time.
I have Piano Man on vinyl.
Do you?
Yeah, it's over there somewhere. I don't know where it is. But
do you realize how you've just climbed in your estimation in my eyes?
Yeah.
Sir.
I love Piano Man. I know it's so cliche or something, but
if you've never been in a bar, like preferably a dive bar, and had Piano Man come on, and then everybody sings along with it, it's actually pretty magical, because we don't have drinking songs here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Well, like the Irish and other countries.
It's like a bar gospel moment.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody kind of tunes in, and
the whole album is actually like that.
It's fantastic.
It's got that feel. And I'm going to note that Kelley Outler is on her hands and knees looking through my record collection for Billy Joel's Piano Man right now. Maybe we'll do an outro of Piano Man, and of course, in post-production.
I mean, that certainly
I don't know if we're
is,
going to have the rights for that.
That certainly is. It's spooky for some people.
Yeah.
Some people really hate Billy Joel, so that might scare some of your listeners.
You know what's really scary?
What?
Is River of Dreams. That is like...
Oh, I have so many feelings.
It's like terrible and awesome at the same time.
But that was, oh man. I mean, we could talk about Halloween, or we could talk about the dissolution of the marriage between Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley, which was happening during River of Dreams. Yeah. And then when I was in 8th grade, I went to one of his concerts, and I gave him a piece of art that I had done. I gave it to a saxophonist, Rico, and there's it's a
You're
whole thing.
Committed to Billy Joel.
It's really intense. It's
That's life in the J-hole.
Exactly. Come on, Joel Hole. But actually, that's where I learned how to harmonize, because my mom and I would sing them together, because my mom came from a musical family, And so that's how I learned how to harmonize, which I do all the time now.
I feel like I'm going to have an Uptown Girl in my head for like the next week.
That was the name of the piece that I gave him.
Really?
Was Uptown Girl, but then the divorce with Christy Brinkley was announced right after, and I felt terrible. And I was sure that he burned my art that I gave him.
Because that song's about her, right?
Yeah, absolutely. She's in the video.
It's,
looking fly as hell.
So Chuck Klosterman, essayist and whatnot, he, we found it. God, he looks so ghostly on the cover.
Man.
He looks creepy as shit.
I mean, he's not a pretty man.
Yeah. So Chuck Klosterman, he actually wrote an essay on Billy Joel.
Really?
He's written a few of them, and he actually talks about like the essence of Billy Joel and like basically how he's just wants to be in love. And
He's a romantic.
Yeah, he interviews him at some point in time, and he like Billy Joel hated his guts for like writing this essay about him, and then they do like a Q&A later on, and Billy Joel and him become friends. Yeah,
So it's a story of redemption.
Yeah, I'll have
That's
to see
what you're
if I
telling
have
me.
the books for it. It's pretty interesting, but I didn't really know much about Billy Joel until I read these essays, and I was like, Jesus Christ. Because Chuck Klosterman's going to be like super into Billy Joel, you know, because he just likes weird shit and like weird pop culture references that nobody cares about. So
Man, Billy. Sweet Billy. My dad hates him.
my sweet Billy. Hey, you know what? This is a Halloween podcast. We're talking about fucking Billy Joel. So tell me about your piece. What you got for us today? What you got for us?
When I was no such thing. When I was a kid, I wanted to grow up to be a ghost. Those were my career aspirations. A ghost or an astronaut or a mermaid. And no lie. And when I would imagine ghosts, I always imagined that they lived like under stairwells or like. And I love open spaces, but I also love spaces that are they're functional for us. But they have their own lives. So places like train stations, places like parking decks.
Places that actually have a life to them. They're not just past.
Yeah, but we take them for granted, and they have wonderful dark corners. They're utilitarian. They're not beautiful, but we're in them constantly. We're in these places constantly. So this is... What I think about is in those corners.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Sounds haunting and beautiful.
I mean, we'll see.
Well,
I'm no Billy Joel.
I think you're better than Billy Joel.
Well, man.
Well, hey.
Did you ever say that to my mom?
Without further ado, Gina Rikiki.
This piece is called A Hook in the Mouth, an October story. I slipped back into space 85, full for now of skin feelings and thoughts. The returns are always melancholic, the break from the host bittersweet but necessary, the return to the loaming more natural than not. I sift through the shared thoughts and feelings of the past many hours, thinking of what it was like to slip off shoes after a long day in sighing relief, to embrace another and breathe in their day-forgotten perfume. In those moments, I am aware of the loss and ache that I exist in, having the fullness of life removed once again. But in this now, I am more myself than I have the ability to be on my own. I can ponder before the eventual dissipation, before the urge to travel strikes again. The perpetual cement twilight is timed with lamps and ballasts, spreading oil pools and gathered cigarette butts, and in it, I wait. I do not sleep, but I do not truly wake either, which is why this particular man-made haze fits me so snugly. If I had shoulders still, I'd shift them down sweetly as though into a heavy blanket that made me feel weighted and safe. I can occasionally feel flashes on my own through my own grunting wishes and wills. However, the longer I hug the damp corners, the more difficult it becomes to feel those sighs of comfort, to remember what stitching on blankets even looks like. So, I wait until I travel. I travel as often as I can. Traveling helps me to remember. I cannot think of how I came to reside here with a collection of other quiet shadows like me, what I call the we, on level P1 of the Equity Sound Bank development. There are times between traveling that I can sense who or what I once was, but it's as though I'm running my once fingers over a large object covered in thick black velvet. I can feel the approximate shape of what my life was, but my voice seems covered in grainy powder. I sometimes practice pushing air out to make a sound like I once did. I cradle myself tightly in Space 85 and try to focus all of my being on moving air over my wispy cords to say a word that has been hanging in my missing gut for years. The hollow rasp echoes in cool stillness, bouncing off of the solid lines of ramps and columns. The desperately insubstantial, striking the uninterested, immobile. Perhaps this car deck is open for 24 hours at a time, or the keepers are simply wasteful with electricity, but the lights rarely all go out at once. The humming lights are low cicada note that comforts and allows me to anchor. I am grateful for the possibly forever twilight because the we can drift like kelp in a small lagoon. I can even see evidence of seasons occasionally, cars coming to us covered in yellow-green pollen or with rust-colored leaves tucked into metal cracks. I notice, though sometimes the meanings aren't more than a passing sensation, like a watery flavor. Memories of eye shape and names come and go now, a currency of dissipating attention when one of us returns to these cool corners. I know roughly who I am or was. I know that things like me used to dwell in stairwells or tunnels or in the center of crossroads. We need to swim where many people come and go regularly so that we can hitch rides and inhabit life like a peripheral kiss. Some, like me, cling to ignored corners in hospitals or emergency rooms, markets, or train stations. The key to these locations is that they must act as hearts, with the host returning over and over. One doesn't want to be trapped beyond these safe hearts, forced to stay with one's host for too long, when the bond can become too strong, or the sudden death of the host strand one forever outside, doomed to dissolve into nothingness. Parking decks are ideal because they are dark and relatively quiet, the air close. Though there can be a variety in the choice of the people to travel with. Often, we have a small group of people that return again and again to their same spots like metal birds to yellow-lined nests. Some are forced down here into the bottom of the deck because they planned their days poorly or perhaps woke up late and must screech into a space and huff off to their days. I prefer to travel at night when people leave to return to their private, secret lives. Traveling during the day often leads to offices, which are frustratingly busy and bright and boring. I'd rather wait for the tender meat of night thoughts and dreams, morning routines, and brewing coffee. We wait, as the hosts return at the end of the day, often distracted and tired, clutching at the devices that light their faces blue in the yellow darkness. It's easy to swim closely to them, wait until they yawn or say something small to themselves. Sometimes they simply come with slack jaws and parted lips. Then the strange miracle can happen with the host none the wiser. We wrap closely and hook into the insides of their mouths, pushing towards the thick veins under the tongue, piercing until we click into their breathing. The host will occasionally register the click as an itch, rubbing their mouths, or suddenly look around as though they feel that they are being watched. This discomfort passes as life and routine beckon, their phones pinging. I settle in. For my kind, the click makes the muddy light bright, the smells real as carnivals, and the volume suddenly loud on a host's private thoughts. I can then feel the softness of a blouse, the pinch of too tight pants, every inhalation a revelation. By riding, I begin to remember my fingertips, that I liked caramel, and that I feel my once mouth smile. And then I travel, and I am becoming once more. I have traveled with women and men, the old and the young. I can't claim much discernment beyond availability in a craving I can neither explain nor understand. The travel and the return I've just made, for instance, was with an older woman. I drifted through her content loneliness as she sorted scarves in one of her drawers and minutely adjusted curios around her apartment that no one else had touched in ages. She drank wine and then tea, and I tasted with her mouth. She took a shower, and I felt the warm water through her crepey skin. We read through her eyes together, chuckling and musing as one. Her dreams were beautiful watercolors of her childhood, stress about her office job, full of intimate twists and turns that feel more real to me than I do. She drinks her morning coffee black and performed glorious waking stretches that reminded me of my once muscles, what it felt like to have thighs and calves and tight shoulders. Releasing her and drifting back to Space 85 this morning, I felt the fullness and sweet heaviness of knowing I once lived alone like her, that I used to swim and eat and fuck and laugh and weep, that I lived. I will cradle myself tightly in a corner now and hold on to the sense of me for as long as I can. I will be me inside the shadows, surrounded by other wispy things that long to be themselves again. I will wait and drift in the lagoon of our in-between. We will wait and watch and crave your open living mouths. Let us in.
It makes you really kind of empathetic towards the idea of a ghost surviving that. It really reminded me of, did you ever read Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis?
God, I think when I was really small, I think when I was in elementary school and they had those little pocket-size illustrated versions, but it's long gone to memory.
Well, that was beautiful and amazing and haunting, and I don't know. It made me sad for this entity that existed. Screw Tape Letters was really about demons trying to fuck with people, basically. But yours was
demons got a demon.
Yeah, they gotta do their thing. But yours was
Everybody's got a job to do.
I was waiting for some sort of evil, and then I realized that kind of the ghostliness of it was the haunting of being an entity that no longer exists. That's the scary part of it, and it was
the benign sadness of nothingness.
It's beautiful though.
Slack jaw and split lip.
Yep.
I want to know this ghost.
Well, yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah, no, that was
they're in
amazing.
all of your dark corners.
I know. I wonder if there's any here.
I toyed with the idea of like if people can actually really feel them, but I think it's better if it's like a parasitic.
Yeah,
you don't know what's happening really.
Yeah.
Like you're not even aware that this is happening.
We're all so caught up in everything about ourselves, about our own lives.
Tuned.
Yeah. So,
have you seen a ghost?
I don't think so. I think that I have a very difficult relationship with the afterlife and with thinking about where we go when we die. And if it is just, I have a feeling that it is just dissipation of energy. It makes sense possibly that there are places, I mean, because there's so much that we don't understand. There's so much that we don't understand.
I love that.
But the idea of, there could be energy patterns repeating in different places or something like that. But I would prefer a much more scientific approach to understanding or explaining it. Things like ghost hunting shows and that kind of stuff make me so mad. I get unreasonably
this
angry.
This little thing that I just invented is going off the charts. It means so much.
Oh, what was that? Scramble, scramble, scramble. Like, I hate pseudoscience. I hate pseudoscience that not only is pseudoscience because people can make a buck, but people are making a buck off of people's greatest fears and hopes and sadnesses.
Yeah.
And they want to know that their dad is in a better place, or they want to know that there's a better place for us. And the idea of how widespread it is, even in our day and age, that there's like the Hollywood medium and the Long Island medium and all this, like Sylvia Browne and all this shit, people who claim to talk with the dead. And it's just the same hucksterism that was used in vaudeville and has been used by snake oil salesmen.
And it's been debunked so many times from people.
But people are But you can't debunk people's fear,
Yeah.
and you can't debunk people's loneliness, and you can't debunk their sadness.
And especially when those things create belief.
Exactly.
What makes you more sad, though? Ghost Hunters or the Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley split?
Oh, man.
I know. You like that?
I know why you're trying to cut me so deep.
How you like them
Man.
apples?
I know why you're trying to cut out my kidney and put it in your bathtub where all the beer is.
This is a horror episode, so I'm bringing all of your
No.
fears and horrors.
Alexa Joel was just a baby. She was still scarred. Yeah, I don't know.
It's cool. You can think on it.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say the Brinkley and Joel split was ultimately amicable and is also scientifically provable. Yeah. So
It's not an alternative fact.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I'm sadder about ghost hunters taking advantage of people's ignorance and fear.
So my brother was a ghost hunter.
Oh boy.
I know.
Foot
but-
in mouth. Oh boy.
No, I don't care. He was a ghost hunter, but he never took payment for anything. And his biggest thing is that he would show up places and say, "There's nothing here." Because I would ask him and say, "Hey, what's up, man? Like,
Yeah.
what'd you find of it?" He's like, "They keep saying the Decatur courthouse is haunted. That shit ain't haunted." Because he went to the Decatur courthouse like 3 times because they kept on getting asked back. He had this ghost hunter group about 10 years ago here in Georgia, and he would just show up and he's like, "Not haunted." You know, nothing was haunted except for, he said, the Buford, the tannery in Buford was haunted. And he had a recording.
By what?
I don't know. They have a recording of somebody going. They're talking and they're saying, "Hey, is there anybody in here? Communicate with us." And nothing happened while they were there. But then there's a recording of you hear this voice in the background go, "Fuck you, fuck you." And I was like, "That's
That's the type of ghost I'm into.
yeah." I was like, "That's." It's like, "Hey, you're in its space 85.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the fuck out, man!"
Get out.
Like
Yeah.
he's just trying to chill over there, and he's trying to,
It's the ball of energy, angry.
yeah, why the hell are you in the Buford Tannery after midnight anyway? You don't.
Exactly.
There's no reason. Let that dude
No one
just
loves
chill.
you. Why are you
Yeah.
here? Go home to your family.
Just chill.
Yeah.
He disbanded the group. He no longer hunts ghosts. So
I mean, I think that's and I think it's probably been done before. The premise of the ghost hunter that wants so badly to believe but can find no proof.
yeah.
And then eventually goes into a super fucking haunted house, and then they get stabbed.
I think my brother's just haunted. You know, he's
But
just
honestly,
a haunted person.
who of us isn't? Though?
True.
We're all haunted by different things. We're all
yeah.
haunted by ourselves. And that's why, I mean, like when I was a kid, I was alone in the house at one point, and I could have sworn that I heard my mother calling my name from another room. And I went and, like, you know, I went dead cold, and I went into the back and I couldn't find her. Now, do I think that that was a demon that was mimicking my mother's voice? Or is it more plausible that I was having some sort of oral hallucination? Knowing myself, I'm going to go with a hallucination.
Yeah.
Because my chemicals aren't very balanced. But I don't know. It's different things for different people. Like my mom says, you know, people need comfort and people need something to help them sleep at night.
Yeah. And some people don't want to sleep at night.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, buddy, about your sleep paralysis. I'm so sorry. That's terrifying. I'll tell you about the time that I once got chased by a Godzilla doll when I was a little girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here with us. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for how much this has creeped you out, John.
I'm kind of anxious right now. I think I need to go for a run, but just, you know, one last time.
Well, maybe next time we'll do like a Groundhog Day one, or
That would be great. Maybe we can get Bill Murray to show up.
I'll see if we can find his cell phone number that's just a voicemail.
Awesome. We could get at least somebody who can do an impersonation of Bill Murray.
It's got to be somebody. It's not me.
Ghostbusters is a great Halloween movie.
It's all right.
Was it?
Wait, which one? The reboot or the original?
The first one, the original.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought the reboot wasn't that bad though.
I liked it a lot.
People hated on it.
I'm disappointed they weren't able to make another one.
I thought it.
I wish that the ladies had had the benefit of having someone on script editing their excellent improvisational offers. There was a lot of offers.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of offers. I'm just saying. Could have been better.
Overall, though, I was thinking this might be a train wreck, and I thought they did a nice job with it.
Yeah.
You know. Well, we had Kelley Outler, Jason Stanaland, Derek Prawl, and Gina Rikiki with us here today. We hope that you enjoy the episode. Matt, I love the episode. What do you think?
It was great. And then the music that everyone here rumbling underneath the readers, that was provided by Brother Brown Monochrome Sweatsuit from the band Chris Benoit. Monochrome Sweatsuit is also our intro music. Make sure to check them out. Shit gets weird with them.
And no thanks to Billy Joel for not giving us rights to be able to use Piano Man on the outro.
Bald bastard.
Thank you so much for listening. Happy Halloween.